Okay, be sure to watch until the end for some bloops.
Hello! Okay, I can't tell you guys how many times I have tried to film this video, but this is gonna be it. I'm done. I'm not doing any more. This is it. So, thank you for clicking. Thank you for watching. If you only watch halfway through, that's on you. I've been debating on making a YouTube channel for quite some time. And I finally have had the balls and the courage to do it. I also want to say thank you to my fellow medical workers. I understand what you're going through. It is not easy to do this. I know we want to just give up sometimes, but just hang in there, okay? Here's a fist pump. So, just keep going. Breathe. Remember to take care of yourself. Eat healthy. Nurture your body. All of that good stuff. I didn't know what was gonna happen. So when people ask me if I enjoy my job, I love my job. I enjoy it with every part of my body. I just never know what's gonna come of it, because every day in the hospital, or even a nursing facility or a long-term facility, whatever you want to call it, every day is gonna be different. So that's the most exciting part about it, is something new every day. The time I performed CPR for my first time on a live dying patient, and it was a very moving learning experience. Now, as a medical worker, I do not like when people ask me, oh, what do you do in your job? And it's a little difficult because I have something new every day, right? So I never know what to expect. I have different patients every day sometimes. They always have something going, whether that be their leg with their wound, or they can't breathe because of COPD. There's a bunch of different things, right? So it's a little frustrating when people ask me that, but I just go down my skills checklist of my qualifications and my skills, and explain to them the basics, I guess. It's a little difficult, because we're a therapist, we're a food person, we're a babysitter, we're all of the above in this world that I live in. But that's okay, because I enjoy and love what I do with my job. Now to the story. So let me explain. This was not my patient, but I had previously taken care of them because we like to call them frequent flyers. Now, frequent flyers are people we see that come in and out of the hospital quite often, a little too often, but it's something sometimes they can't help. So, we just do what we can, get them in, get them out, but, they may or may not be back again. So that's fine. As one tech may not be able to, or one nurse may not be able to attend to that patient, somebody else will, so there's call lights and things like that. So somebody and something will always be answered and taken care of, whether that be the nurse assigned for that patient or not. So the floor setting, let me give you an example. So we have one nurse's desk, and it's got a bunch of computers. Our unit assistant sits there, our doctor's office, all that good stuff. So it's just one big little area. And along that, there's our hallway with our 26 beds, and it just is up and down this hallway, right? And there's one hallway that goes long way. So it's kind of like a T. So this is our patients, this is all offices and jazz, right? So, that being said, with our beds, we have about 3 rooms that we can get to from the nurse's station pretty easy, pretty quick. And those are for people with high fall risks, people with dementia, sometimes aggressive patients. If we have restraining orders on a patient, we'll have to put them there sometimes. People that just won't sit down. And that can be frustrating sometimes, because if we have to go all the way down the hallway to this long side, we may not make it, and the person may end up on the floor. So it's also a big safety issue for the patient, so we want to make sure they're safe at all costs. Across from the nurse's station desk. So at our desk, we have a red phone, and when this red phone rings, it means somebody is coding, somebody is dying, something's wrong, right? So we also have what we call a teletracking board, and this is where we can see all of the heart functions of our patients, the oxygen level, the saturation of the patient, the pulse, all that good stuff. So that is kind of like the two main parts of this. So the red phone rings, right? The red phone had rang and my unit assistant ran to go get it. And at this time of being, it's only her at the desk because everybody else is busy in a room or something. And I'm walking down the hallway right by the desk. So the phone rings and she was like, oh my goodness, go check on this patient, go get them, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, I'll go check on them. So I went just right diagonal across from where I was standing, actually. In a hospital or a setting or a nursing facility setting, you never know when things are going to come. Death has a time of its own. So I went in there. The patient had their breakfast tray over them. They were up off the floor in the bed, so they were sitting at a 90-degree angle like this. And the patient was just kind of sunken over and, non-responsive. There, I had not, or backtrack. I knocked on the door. I entered. I tried to get a response out of the patient. I wasn't getting anything, so I started rubbing on their sternum, trying to get a reaction, and nothing. So, like I said, this was not my patient during the day, but I had previously taken care of them, so it was a little disappointing to see them so down and not taken care of. So what ended up happening was I was rubbing the sternum, and the nurse at the time had came in. And this is why I say this is a learning experience, because every time you have a code or something goes wrong, I want to say, you're always going to have an opportunity to go back and look at that and see what you can do better. So for my coworkers, fellow people, I hope you learned something from this, because I did. And people who are just watching to watch, maybe you should go and learn CPR, because you never know when you'll have to save a life. I think everybody should be CPR certified at least once in their lifetime, if not always in their lifetime, because you never know when someone's going to drop and have a heart attack on the side of the road. So, that being said, I saw the nurse come in and they started freaking out, just like freaking out. Now, mind you, this was my first time, and this was the nurse's first code, blue. So they didn't know what to do either. They were frantic, they were freaking out, they were running in and out of the room like, oh my goodness, this is a code blue, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? Who do I call? And you can see the two different sides here, because this person, the nurse, was frantic and I was calm. So when you're in a situation like this, you don't ever want to freak out, because your nerves go, your adrenaline is already rushing, and teamwork and communication is very valuable in this time, because you need to know what to bring in, you need to know what has happened, what has gone wrong. There's all kinds of things, So the patient... Back to the patient. So the patient's still non-responsive, still nothing's going on. So at this time of being, I swing around the table off of the patient. I ended up going around to the other side of the bed. So here's the bed. So here I am, and I walked around. So now it's a wall, me, and then the bed. So I'm staring here looking at the door, and I saw the nurse disappear so she could go call the code blue over the intercom so we can have our special admit team come in. And as I was waiting, this felt like an eternity. It felt like forever. And I mean like forever that this was going on. But really, it was only maybe... Whoa. It was maybe... it was maybe only, like 30 minutes. If that, okay? When I was standing there, I was kind of frantic, like, oh my goodness, like, is this me? Like, am I about to perform CPR, because I've never done this. So, we test on dummies and things like that, but I've never I've never done it on a real human being. So it was very interesting to feel what I felt, and I'll explain, and witness what I witnessed, because I didn't realize how calm and collected I was during this situation until I ran it back through my mind. I was like, wow, I handled that really, really well compared to the nurse that was with me, who, again, this was their first time as well. Okay, so it's 11:11 and I had witnessed codes before, but I never was in the action. So being in the action, it's a little bit different. And like I said, was right here by the wall. I started taking off the telemetry leads, and that's where we can see that heart monitor function from the patient on our computer screen. That's when we'll be able to know if the patient's flatline or not. And then I took off the gown, I started to unbutton the gown, and I started to lower the patient. Now this is where I fell false, because I didn't realize it was a CPR lever to push on the bed. So that being said, I could have just pushed the button and the patient would have went flat. But instead of that, I actually lowered them with the buttons on the bed, and it took a little longer. But it's like I said, it's a learning experience. You realize what could have been done or could not have been done. And that's fine. I went to look up to see if my nurse was coming, and I still did not see anybody. So I was like, okay, I got everything off of them. Nobody's here but me. It's just me and this soul, this being right here in front of me, dying, and I have no other choice but to do what I know how to do, And I put my hands together and I just started going. So I started counting. I did my, what's the word I'm looking for? I did my reps. I did those. My compressions. There we go. Compressions. Woo! I did my compressions. And at this time, I finally had saw my nurse, not my nurse, but the nurse come back in. So she came back in. She was still kind of freaking out, like, oh my goodness, blah, blah, blah. And I was expecting my nurse. I say my nurse because I work with them all the time, okay? So we'll go with that. But I expected the nurse to come in and take over CPR, because you're supposed to intertwine and switch so you don't get tired. And you can have that full momentum and force for the patient the whole time, no switch ups. But no, the nurse actually came in and grabbed a yonker. And a yonker is a long, little, skinny, like, kind of like this, actually. This is my straw, but it's like this, and it's clear, and it has a little hole here, and it's got an end, so it's like a suction, right? So you can suck out things, and it's connected to a tube up to a container, a canister, and it's like a vacuum. So we use that for mucus in the mouth. If someone's got really bad mucus stuff coming up, we suck that out. We suck out anything that's just gross, okay? So she came in and grabbed the yonker and started suctioning the patient's mouth, because as I started to do CPR, the patient had started foaming and coming out with red. And I didn't realize what it was until after I thought about it. I thought it was blood and she was sucking it up. But no, it was actually the jello, the red jello that the patient was eating on before they, started to go downhill. And so the nurse just kept suctioning and suctioning. And I was kind of in awe, like, you're not going to offer to help, you're not going to offer to count for me, none of that. So I continued to do CPR, and as I did CPR, I felt the ribs crack. And, people tell me that all the time. They're like, oh yeah, you'll feel it, this, and that. And I was like, no, I won't. No, you really do, and it's quite disturbing. And I actually had stopped for a second, but realized what I was doing, and I kept going. It was just not a feeling you want to feel, So that had happened, and it was an incredible experience. And so as this is all still going on, this is all still in a time span of maybe like 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. My charge nurse at the time comes in, and they come around to the side where I am at, and they start counting for me. And so they start counting for me, and I get through maybe like 2 more compression sets, and she takes over for me. My charge nurse takes over and starts doing compressions. And at this time, I'm stepping aside and I see the special team come in. So there's probably about 10 people in this room, I want to say. 8 to 10 people. They're putting the AED pads on. There was no shock advised. And so we just kept going, we just kept doing what we had to do. And there was communication, timing was well, everything was good. And as this all happened, I came out and I sat at the door with my boss, and I watched the whole experience going on. So I watched them do what they did. They got out the medicine they needed. They did the AED pads again. They were still doing CPR, things like that. And meanwhile, as all this is going on, there's a patient down the hall who was taking a shower, and the room had flooded. So my boss was like, come on, let's go clean up this flood. So we go down there, clean up the flood, clean up all the water on the floor, and I was like, wow, you know, like, now I see why people are in the ER and things like that, because, you know, that was quick. The adrenaline, the rush, all of that is fascinating, you know, because you don't get that every day. You might, depending on where you work and the floor, but, like, I don't. So it was very intriguing to see that experience happen right before my beautiful eyeballs. And saw them take the patient down to ICU, intensive care unit, and, you know, do what they needed to do. I think they might have intubated them. I can't quite remember. But the patient was down there for a little bit, and I want to say they ended up passing because it was just so harsh on their body, and they were so fragile and so, you know, malnourished because they weren't eating properly. They weren't eating properly and things like that. So that's something we can't really, you know, help anymore. But we were there for the time being, or they were there for the time and things like that. So I feel like I did pretty well. I feel like I handled that pretty well. I feel like it was very collected and calm. Meanwhile, I'm walking down the hallway and I looked at my watch and I was like, oh, it's 8:30 in the morning. Let me go pick up my lunch or my breakfast trays for my patients and continue on my day. So that was that. And I just hope that you guys can learn from that experience, because it was very interesting. I'm not quite sure, like, how to even explain it, you know, but I want to say thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informational. I hope it was just fun to watch me talk. I don't know, you know, I hope you got something out of it, okay? Otherwise you wouldn't have clicked. But I continue to think about what I'm going to post on here, and I will be working on other videos and things to post. So stay tuned. If you want to subscribe, if you have any questions about anything or any concerns or comments that you want to have, leave them down below. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't hesitate. And like I said, thank you so much for watching. I hope that this will be an adventure and a journey for us all. So thank you. See ya. The day I saved a life. What was I talking about? I forgot. Oh, I'm not gonna put that in there. We're not gonna talk about that. Like I said, I saw them do what they do. Rewind. So I had. Okay, but so this is difficult. So coming. Oh my goodness, Sarah, gather yourself.
Thank you so much for watching, and tune in next time.